Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast, powered by the African American Marketing Association. Each week, we'll bring you an insightful conversation from some of the best experts in our industry on how to advance our career. Join the collective of Black marketers across the world, advancing their brand as we work towards creating a collaborative community. Hey, good people. Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Gomez, and today's special guest is Nakita Pope, brand strategist of Branding Chicks based in Atlanta, Georgia. Nakita, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here.
Good. So why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do?
Okay. So I started as a graphic designer. My training is in graphic design. I went to undergrad at Hampton University, go Pirates. And then I went on to the Portfolio Center, which is now Miami Ad School here in Atlanta. And so that gave me an opportunity to kind of hone my skills, build my portfolio. And over the last, I guess, almost 25 years now, I've done a little bit of everything in marketing and advertising. I've been a designer, an art director. I've been a creative director. And then I started my business, Branding Chicks, about almost 10 years ago now. So I specialize in brand strategy and brand development for women-owned businesses and femme-focused brands.
Very cool. So you said a lot that I want to kind of dissect.
Okay.
Because it's so many things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I need a logo. I need a flyer done, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
What's the difference between maybe a graphic designer, you mentioned creative, art director. So what's the difference between those? And then of course the levels between those different titles.
Okay, that's a great question. So as a graphic designer, I feel like there's a lot of flexibility. You can traditionally be in design firms, you can work in-house, you can be in advertising agencies and things like that. So graphic designer, of course, does, design of all kinds, whether it's print design or whether it's digital, and that keeps expanding, right? Traditionally, when you hear art director, it has two specific meanings, and it's easy to get them confused. So in advertising, an art director does a lot of the same things a designer does, but specifically for advertising, and they tend to work in teams. So it's usually a copywriter and an art director paired together. So they concept together, they create together, and they work on, whether it's digital advertising or traditional advertising, billboards, commercials, all that kind of stuff. In a design firm or sometimes in-house, the title art director might be the next level up for a graphic designer. So they may not be working on advertising, or they may be working on advertising depending on what the situation is. But that is more to delineate the hierarchy of the department more than it is for advertising. And then a creative director kind of is the person that is have the overarching ideas about what's going on. That a lot of times they're the ones that deal with the clients. And then you may have the people who are a little bit lower might be the ones that are coming up with the concepts and things like that. But the creative director is helping them hone those ideas and that kind of thing. Depending on how big the company is, that goes, the role changes a bit, but ideally they are the one with the 300,000 foot view of what's going on in that creative department.
Very good. And do you think that's an actual gradual process? Can you be a creative director without the design skills, in your opinion?
I think you can. There's lots of paths to creative director depending on what environment you're working in. So if you are in advertising, then you can be a copywriter or an art director and move into a creative director role or an associate creative director role at some point. In design, it's normally you have to be a designer first before you can move up to be a creative director. A creative director is a senior role. So no matter what path you take to get there, most often you have experience in one of those buckets before you can move into that space.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because I know I have a good eye. I can direct. but I cannot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I know when I see it. I know what looks good when I see it. I'm going to trust you.
Right.
But
Yeah. Exactly. And a creative director is often managing other people, which is the other thing. So,
which is a different skill set. Which
absolutely.
get into management, you're managing people, personalities, and less of the
Projects, budgets, all that stuff. Yeah. And sometimes at a lower level, you can do those things and not necessarily have to do that part. You know what I mean? And some people are good at those additional things and some people aren't, or they don't like it.
And I think that's important to know because, like, we know we need more money, but we don't necessarily want more responsibility, right? So,
right.
It's like if you know you don't want to deal with management, we'll just say, people and money. It's okay being a graphic designer. It's just play to your strengths.
Absolutely. And if it's something that you want to move into, then it's an opportunity for you to learn what you need to learn to be good at what it takes to be in that new role. You know what I mean? I think just that self-awareness, like you said, is important because then you know what you would enjoy, what you wouldn't enjoy, what additional training you might need, or what resources you might need to get you to where you want to go. But you have to have the information first.
Okay. And you said another interesting thing in your intro. You mentioned portfolio school. Now, my first time hearing about a portfolio school was probably 3 years ago. I have a good friend, Michael Thomas, CEO of Creative Coup, if I'm not mistaken. He's been a guest on the podcast, who's really trying to build a portfolio school for pretty much Black and Brown students, which I think is interesting. So can you just give us a little bit insight of what is a portfolio school? Why did you make the decision to go and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So, like I said, my undergrad was in graphic design, and I learned a lot there. But I also realized when I started to look around at the jobs I really wanted that I needed to beef up my portfolio a bit. That was, 1994 when I graduated. So, there were lots of computer generated kind of stuff going on, but it wasn't, like it is now. And so portfolios weren't quite there yet. They were kind of on the cusp. And at the time, Hampton was more a fine art program. So I feel like I learned what I needed to learn, but my portfolio just didn't reflect what I wanted it to reflect to get the jobs that I wanted. So I started looking around and I was trying to decide whether I wanted to go into a traditional master's program or what that might look like. And that's when I stumbled on portfolio schools. I had no knowledge of them before that. And I found out about Portfolio Center first. And then a couple of other people had recommended it to me. So I decided to check it out and see what it was all about. There's others across the country. Creative Circus was one. I taught there for 13 years. I just stopped at the end of last year. There's a Denver portfolio school. There's a lot of other ones popping up now. But the premise of a portfolio school is that, and they have varying lengths now, but traditionally they were 2 years. So it gave you the opportunity to kind of jump into the creative side of marketing and advertising and do it in a way that didn't require you to get a 4-year degree. So often, a lot of times people would go either instead of going to college or, honestly, the numbers show that most people went after college instead of going to grad school, or they were changing careers. So unfortunately, a lot of people end up taking on a career that isn't really what they want to do, but they might have done what their parents wanted them to do and things like that. Sometimes it's an uphill battle to kind of, convince your family that you can make a lucrative living as a creative, unfortunately. So we had people from all backgrounds who were, moving into, being a copywriter or an art director or a photographer or a content creator. And so that's kind of what that looked like. But for me, it was perfect. It gave me a chance to build on my skills. I learned a lot there. I was able to build my portfolio. And when I left, I felt like I was ready to hit the ground running and that I could get my foot in the door with the work that I had created. So, and that's what I wanted.
So prior to undergrad, were you always a drawer, a doodler, like you knew you wanted to Okay, be a designer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I didn't know the term graphic design. I didn't. But I would, if my parents put a crayon in my hand, I would disappear for hours. Um, so I was always drawing. I was always like painting and like tearing stuff apart. Toys and stuff. Like I would take them apart to see how they worked, which my dad loved because he was a mechanic. He's like, "That's my girl." But my mom was like, "I just bought you that." But now I realize that the combination of the two is what led me to brand strategy, like trying to figure out how things work and solve problems and, figure out a strategy to get there in a creative way. Like I started doing that a long time ago, apparently. But yeah, I knew I wanted to do something creative and I was about that close to being an architect. And then I realized how much math was involved. And I was like, yeah, that's probably not going to be the look for me. So I'm going to keep looking. So my senior year in college, I found graphic design. I was like, that sounds like what I want. So I started looking at programs and stuff, and it came down to Hampton and SCAD, and I ended up choosing Hampton.
I love it. I love it. Currently, what type of clients do you like to work with, or type of projects you like to take on, and what's been your favorite campaign so far?
Oh, that's a good question. I work with a variety of people all over the country, which is really fun. My specialty is women-owned businesses and femme-focused brands. But I do have clients that are outside of that realm. I work with lots of nonprofits and things like that as well. But the projects that I enjoy the most are the ones where I can really like dig into the weeds with the strategy part of it, and be able to create an overarching strategy for a company or an organization, and then help them execute, all of the things that go into that brand. Because like you said, it's not just a logo, like it is, your messaging and how you talk about your brand. It's being very clear about who your audience is and defining them past the demographics. Like it's not just how old are they, how much money do they make, are they Black, are they Hispanic, where do they live? Like it goes past that. And most brands don't dig into it that far, but that's the part that I really love. And it helps to really focus a business in so many ways. It helps you make decisions to decide where your money is going to go and what you're going to invest in, down to like, what conference are you going to speak at? Like those kind of things, because you're very clear about who your audience is and how to engage them. So I love being able to do that part. And sometimes it's just the strategy for me, depending on the client. And then in other places, I'm building out all of their visual identity, their messaging, like all that kind of stuff. So I like that it's there's a big scope, so that makes it, every project is different. It means that I don't get bored, and I get to work with lots of really interesting businesses and companies across the spectrum in lots of different industries. So it allows me to learn a lot too,
Yeah, that's definitely the good thing about being a strategist or a consultant. Can you describe one of your favorite campaigns that you've worked on?
Yeah, actually, this is a fairly recent one. I worked with, there's two. One, I worked with the Tofty Lake Center there in Ely, Minnesota, and they're an artist retreat for people that are writers, dancers, they're in theater, or they may be, fine artists, things like that. But the idea is that, they can go there for a week and be in this like beautiful environment on the lake and just, take the time that they need to sort of fill their creative cups back up. There's lots of those kinds of programs out there, but the reason why I felt like this one was so unique is because they didn't necessarily make it so that you had to create anything while you were there. You could if you wanted to, but you don't have to. And so many of the other ones, like even to apply for them, like residencies and things like that, they're like, tell us what you're going to make while you're here. And that's kind of how you get in. Their philosophy is that, nature is going to be the thing that nurtures you. So, come fill your cup back up. And I love the client. They were so fun and easy to work with. I rebranded them. They've been around for a while, but it was time for a rebrand. So we rebranded from the ground up with all of their messaging, logo, all their visual identity, all that stuff. And then I ended up being able to work with them again. And I love the executive director and the board. So that was fun. And then the second one is also a fairly recent one. I did some strategy work with the African American Diaspora Museum of Atlanta, and they are a virtual museum, and they have some really awesome programming and things like that. If you're familiar with the artist Fahamu Piku, that's one of his babies. So it was really fun to work with them and sort of get some strategy on the ground for them to relaunch. They launched during the pandemic, so they kind of took a little break to regroup and kind of relaunched in the fall last year. So I worked with them on strategy for that. So it was pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I would like, because you've been in business for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to help me with this question, right?
Okay.
How do you find the balance of when a client reaches out to you for one thing, but they need so much more, right? And it's not necessarily, of course, we want to make money and make more money, but you're showing them why they need this, why these things complement each other. Really, I guess, how do you upsell to your client and the benefit of that? Because I've worked with graphic designers in the past where they may not know that skill set or just to take initiative.
Yeah. It's a delicate balance. And I think one of the things that's helped me a lot over the years is because I did a lot of freelance work, even though I have full-time jobs and stuff like that. I did a lot of freelance work before I started Branding Chicks. But Branding Chicks for me, really made me think about things very differently. And I realized that I wasn't just starting a graphic design business, that I had learned more and there was more that I could offer, that I wanted to offer my clients. So even just positioning myself as a brand strategist sort of changed everything, right? Because I'm a brand strategist that also does design, and not a designer who also does brand strategy, right? So some of that is, positioning yourself. The other part of it is, I'm a teacher at heart. I want people to leave any interaction they have with me, especially as a client, knowing a lot more than they did coming in. So for me, I don't even necessarily look at it as upselling, although that's the result. I'm just trying to teach them something. I'm like, the reason why we need to do this is because this is the foundation of your brand. It's not just one thing. And I don't believe in I'm going to go away and do all this smoke and mirror stuff behind the scenes and then bring it to you ta-da, here's your brand. It's a very collaborative process. So once they see my thinking and they understand why I'm doing what I'm doing and the questions that I ask and all that kind of stuff, I feel like that instills a bit of trust. But I try to teach them as much as I can. Just like I said about, the brand strategy part of it, it is the foundation of your brand. It goes hand in hand with your business strategy. So for a lot of people, they understand their business strategy. They have a business plan. They've done all these things. So if they understand that those things go together, then it kind of breaks it open for them. So then it's not just you come to me at the very end and that's the icing on the cake. It has to be kind of baked in to everything else that they're doing. And so when they understand how much that helps them make decisions, well, we've already defined your audience and we know exactly who those people are and we know exactly what your position is in the market, then it makes it so much easier to decide what is the next year going to look like in terms of how we reach out to people. Or it makes a big difference in deciding whether it makes sense to make this investment now or to make that investment now into the business, because which one is going to impact our big overarching strategy the most, right? So just trying to get them to link up the things that they probably have already decided about their businesses and how this impacts that. So it's not a separate thing, because usually the mindset is that it's separate. As soon as they understand that it all goes together, then it makes it a lot easier for them to understand that they need to make some of those decisions,
And what are some things people should consider when it comes to a brand revamp or a redesign?
Ooh, that's a great one too. I think the main thing is to get to the bottom of why you want that. Often if you're doing a rebrand, then usually several things are at play. It might just be a cosmetic rebrand, meaning that like all of your strategy and all that stuff is going to stay the same, but it's time to update, the look and feel of what your brand is. That's one kind of rebrand. Another one might be something that has a specific catalyst. Are you merging with another company? Do you have a new product that now puts you in a different category? Do you want to be seen differently in the market than you are now, and you need a completely different message to have people see you the way you want to be seen? Like there's lots of ways that plays out, but knowing clearly like what the catalyst for it is the first step, because if you are clear about that, then it determines like not only where you're going, but why do you want to go there? Because sometimes people just are like, I'm just sick of looking at this stuff and I want to change it. Which I totally get, but do you want to make this investment for that reason, or is there something else going on? You know what I mean? It's not like changing an outfit. You're still trying to make sure that there's some brand recognition there and that people know who you are. So if you change it too much, they never get a chance to know who you are and to recognize you on site. And so, you want to make sure that you're not just making a change just to make a change, but that there's a reason behind it.
Look, I want to feel good. I want my logo to pop, because when my logo pops, I feel good. Okay.
Right. But meanwhile, it's only going to pop to you. And the people that just now are recognizing your old one don't know who you are anymore. It's like, oh, okay, well, I don't know who that is. So, yeah.
It sounds and looks familiar.
Okay. Right.
That's good.
So just know why. That's a good start.
All right. She's getting all of us in check right here. Okay. Well, just hold your horses, get a consultation, see if
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. And I get it. I'm prone to chop my hair off in a minute. Like I understand it. I get it. I get the impulse, but you just got to think it through.
So you said a lot of good things. Really kind of being patient, understanding your why, similar to dating. So how is branding like dating?
Absolutely. Ooh, I talk about this all the time. It's one of my favorite topics. But the reason why I think branding is like dating is because you're building an ongoing relationship with your audience. It's not just one thing and it's not just one time, right? So think about, if you meet someone and you're like, man, I really would like to keep them in my life, whatever kind of relationship that is, whether it's a colleague or whether it's a business partner or a romantic partner, like you have decided that you want to build an ongoing relationship with this person. And that's the same thing that it is for a business or an organization and an audience. So that means that there's lots of touch points. It's not just one thing, and you have to be consistent, because if you're not consistent, then now they don't know who you are. And they're like, you were cool the last time we went out, but I don't know about this new situation you got going on, right? So then by the third time, they're not sure if they want to go out with you anymore. They're not sure if they want to buy your product. They're not sure if they want to buy your service. But if you deliver every time and, they get deeper and deeper, then eventually you get your audience to a place where they're now your brand ambassadors. They're so pleased with the interactions that they have with you and your brand that they're telling everybody else about it. You know what I mean? And that's ideally what you want. So when most people, when they think about a brand, they think about sort of like all that initial stuff that has to happen, but they don't understand that it's every single touch point. Every time you go to Chick-fil-A and they say, it's my pleasure, that is part of their brand, right? Every single, down from the highest level of strategy from the CEO down to how you tell your receptionist to answer the phone, that is part of your brand, every single touch point. So if you think about it like that, then you understand not only the big picture of it, but also the minutia of it and the need to be consistent in order to build that relationship.
I love it. And you'll be speaking on that topic at the Marketing for the Culture Summit, June 1st,
I will.
2023 in Houston, Texas. So what can the people expect from you? You already said you're a teacher at heart. Yes. Branding like dating is your topic. So what are some of the tidbits people can get from you in your session?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the stages of dating your audience. Not only all of the things that are involved in that, all the elements that are involved, but also what that sort of timeline might look like. And how you can make sure that it's consistent and that it's authentic and that it speaks for your company or your brand. So we'll be talking a lot about that. And we'll be talking about, what the benefits are to being able to build that type of relationship with your audience, because that's the thing, like I said, that solidifies your brand in the market. It solidifies your brand with that audience. And it makes it not so hard to get in the door, because once people feel that way about you, they're probably gonna, be ready to engage with any new thing that you do, because they already have those warm, fuzzy feelings about you. So we'll be talking about that.
All right, very cool, very cool. Last year, you attended Marketing for the Culture Summit, which was in Atlanta, Georgia. Can you just give the listeners some feedback, what you experienced, and that maybe that can give them some insight on what to expect?
Oh yeah. I had a great time. I came in with an open mind. I didn't, I had information, but I didn't have any preconceived notions about what to expect. I love that it was fairly intimate, even though it was a good crowd. I felt like it was small enough that I could sort of like move around and move through the crowd and talk to people and meet people and feel like really comfortable there, which I appreciated. I thought the speakers were awesome. I actually just was talking to someone about the Black and Meta talk yesterday, because I really enjoyed that one, and I've been looking more into the metaverse and all that stuff. And that one was my favorite of the weekend, so that was cool. But I just had a really good time. I was also supporting I think some of the people that were either attending or speaking I already knew. So it was a good chance for me to see them as well. So I really enjoyed myself, and I'm excited about this year.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's give a special shout out to Terrence over the African American Graphic Designers, AAGD.com, for any designers that are listening. You've been a part of that group for a while now. Can you give us a little bit of insight about AAGD?
Yeah, I think it's a great community. There's so many people there that are really helpful. And I think that, so often it's hard for us to find our community and feel like it's a safe space. And I think the members at large definitely create that. Everybody's really helpful, willing to share resources, lots of people sharing their work and things like that. So, I really support the mission and vision of what AAGD is doing. And some of the things that they have, planned. And I know they've been able to put a lot of designers on to be able to work on projects and things like that. So I think it's really an asset to the market.
Yeah, definitely. Terrence is a very intelligent, very wise brother, and he's been doing good work for a long time. So much love and respect to him. Is there anything else you would like to add anything graphic designers, marketers need to know? Anything special about your session in June? I'm really excited about. Just anything else the listeners need to know?
I think if you are working with graphic designers, bring them into the fold early. I think if you are on the marketing side, if you're on the consulting side, the strategy side, even if you're a writer, bring them in early. A good designer is not just a production person. They have ideas, they have concepts, and the ideas are just going to be that much stronger if they are on the ground floor and can do some of that thinking alongside you, and not at the end. So, that's where we like to play. That's where the fun is. So don't be afraid to call them up a little early, even if it's coming down the pike, and be like, I got this thing coming. It's not there yet, but I really want to bring you in as early as possible so you can start thinking through it. Like that's the best thing to do. So don't hesitate to do that. I think most designers would appreciate that. Other than that, I'm just excited about June. I'm ready to share with some folks and talk about branding is like dating.
Yeah, definitely. So how can people find you?
You can find me at brandingchicks.com. On IG, it's Real Branding Chicks. On Facebook, it's Branding Chicks. And you can reach out to me there. I'm also on LinkedIn. So Nakita M as in money, Pope, on LinkedIn.
And we'll definitely have all of those links in the show notes. Nakita, thanks for being a guest. I appreciate it. Can't wait to see you in months. It's going to be a good time.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Yes. And it's the beginning of my birthday month. So I'm going to be ready to celebrate already. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Look, we having a conference and a birthday party all in one. Where else you want to be?
You know what I'm saying? I celebrate all month. I'm one of those people. So...
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to Marketing for the Culture podcast. Y'all be well.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Marketing for the Culture podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe, whether it's on Apple, Google, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And of course, our videos are on YouTube. If you have a moment, feel free to give us a rate, review, or just comment. We appreciate our sponsors for their continuous support. Also, if you're interested in learning more about our sponsors or becoming a member of the African American Marketing Association, visit aa-ma.org.